set the stage for the big picture about why leadership education is important, introduce you to the model that we use, which is based on the best-selling book, The Leadership Challenge, orient you to what the workshop is about and how to prepare, and most importantly, clarify the steps that you'll need to take in order to complete your leadership practices inventory assessment. And towards the end, if you have questions, save them up and we will get to them. Meanwhile, I'll just go through the presentation, and I think I'll probably cover most of the questions you're likely to have along the way. So first of all, we all work in organizations that sometimes resemble this graphic. It's kind of convoluted, but what's the problem, right? The water's coming out. Well, if we want to improve organizations, it's going to take some leadership. That is, people willing to step up, step out, propose new initiatives, take some risks, and be visible, be present for other people. And it turns out that leadership is kind of an elusive quality. I think most people would agree that we could use more of it, or more skillful demonstration of leadership. And one of the ways to look at this is about how people are engaged in the workplace. And according to Gallup, engagement is directly linked to the leadership of people around us as individuals. The more effective people are as leaders, the more we're engaged. And there's a shocking statistic in this, and that according to that very same Gallup information collected over the last 15 years or so, is less than 1 out of 3 American workers reports themselves as being fully engaged in their work. I don't know if the other 2/3 are just not as into it, you could say. And our job as leaders is to help bring people out, have them be more engaged, because not only, of course, are we more productive, but we're also happier and report better health and participation in the workplace, etc. So leadership really matters. And there's a number of trends that we could say that just point to how important leadership really is. I mean, we know that we're in this time of massive change. We've got a lot of people retiring from the workforce and taking their brains with them, and providing opportunities for people to step up. Well, we have to prepare them for that. There's all these generational shifts as well. There's 4 generations of people in the workplace now, and everyone has slightly different needs. We have to work with that. And the speed of change, of course, is meaning that it's happening everywhere. There isn't an industry that isn't being affected by technology, changes in the population, regulation, artificial intelligence, you name it. I don't have to point it out that how important that is, and how we really want to help people lead through change rather than just be at the effect of it. Also, all our organizations are driving to be quicker, more efficient, bolder, more productive. There's this relentless drive for us to improve what we do, and that's a leadership issue. But the good news is we have better tools available to us all the time. We have many things that can help us understand that for all of us in the workplace, learning is not an optional activity. It's required for us to stay current, keep up with the pace of change. And all of these are leadership issues, and these are all things that we address in our workshop. We believe that every person in your organization has the opportunity to lead, that leading is about behavior more than it's about position. It's not about your title, what's on your business card. It's not about your salary. It's about what you do every day, and that leading or leadership is a set of behaviors that's available to everybody. And of course, this doesn't happen within a vacuum. We know there are essentially 3 overlapping circles of skill areas that you all bring to what you do every day, from managing the organization, the structure or the systems of the organization, to supervising the people around you and helping them succeed. And then there's this question of how do we lead that's a little bit different from that. That's what we're here to talk about in the workshop that we present, which is to say, well, what is leadership anyway? What practices do leaders engage in that make us different from other people, that call us out as leaders? That's the original research question behind the Leadership Challenge franchise, which started out in 1985 of investigating that very question about the behaviors of leadership. And at this point has become a worldwide phenomena of more than 20 books published, in many languages, and research has now been conducted in 72 countries by these two gentlemen. Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner both live in the San Francisco Bay Area. They began their research at Santa Clara University in Silicon Valley, and essentially have just never stopped. And now, in the 6th edition of the Leadership Challenge book, which came out in 2017, they continue to bring to light the excellence that leaders engage in and help us understand how we can find that excellence in ourselves as well. Their research now, as I said, began in the 80s. We have thousands and thousands of individual case studies and interviews. We also have more than 5 million people who have participated in our leadership assessment. More on that later, because you will be participating in that as well. And this data is not just from North America or from businesses where the primary language is English. That our data now has been collected on every continent and from countries as diverse as Pakistan, Morocco, and Germany. Not only that, the research is backed up by more than 600 studies commissioned or completed by others that bolster the foundation behind the research and help us demonstrate its validity in different settings. So the really rich information behind the 5 practices model that we present in the workshop. According to all this investigation, leaders engage in 5 practices. That is, we model the way or set a personal example of what we expect of others. We inspire a shared vision of what's possible in the future that we could all contribute to. Leaders challenge the process, which means we're always looking for ways to improve things because continuous improvement never ends. Helping people deal with that sense of risk and uncertainty about the future. Leaders don't engage in any of this as a solo act. We enable others to act. We strengthen the people around us, help other people succeed, and then finally, leaders encourage the heart. That is, we recognize people's contribution to the workplace and create an emotional connection between people that makes it that helps bring people to life in the workplace in such a way that I know I'm contributing to what we're doing here. I know I'm part of it. And this 5 practices model has proven itself over the years as to be sort of a roadmap as to what to do. And the way I like to say it is, if there's something you want to do in the world, something you want to do in the workplace to make a difference or to investigate a new area, create a new product, or just maintain that excellent customer service you already have, that this 5 practices model provides you with a guide in how to be even more effective than you already are. It's marvelously approachable and practical in its nature. So when we talk about these 5 practices, each has 2 commitments to it that are sort of explain what it's about. So to model the way is the first practice, and it means it's about how each of us as leaders needs to speak from our own voice, that we have to know what we believe and be transparent and authentic with other people, because people will hear what we say if they believe who we are first. And that we also set the example by aligning what we do with what our organization values and what our mission is. That when we model the way in this way, we will have people's attention and we have the ability to influence them. And why would we want to influence them? Well, in part, it's to inspire a shared vision of the future. What could we become? The first part of this, as leaders, we have to investigate the future. We have to envision what's possible and present people with inspiring, exciting ideas about what's possible, where we could go, and then bring people into that vision by appealing to everyone's shared desires about what kind of future we could have together. And this ability to inspire a shared vision is something that traditionally scores low on our assessments, meaning there's a lot of opportunities for us to do this more, talk about the future and get people excited about what could be. Leadership doesn't stop there, because we have to put that vision into action, and that's what it means to challenge the process. It's how we search for opportunities to find things to change, basically, ways we could grow or improve, how we could innovate what we do. It's operating in the spirit of that anything can be improved, and every day our job is to streamline a process, save a little time, be more effective, use technology better, etc. And the job of the leader is to not only champion that set of actions, but also to help people feel comfortable with this notion of continuous change and the fact that to change means to experiment, and to experiment means to fail, that we have to help people feel comfortable with the idea that we are going to iterate in order to build a road to that inspiring future and feel okay about that by learning from mistakes and trying new things. This is where, as leaders, we spend most of our time. That and enabling others to act, that is, how do we support the success of other people? Because leadership is not a solo act, it's a team act. So the first thing that we stress in our workshop is how we build relationships between people, and how you create a network between people that's based on an honest and trusting relationship with other people. Is how do you do that more frequently, more effectively, because those relationships are at the basis of us being able to get things done. The leader also understands that his job is to help other people succeed by increasing people's confidence and competence in what they do, helping people build their careers, tough assignments, lots of feedback on what you're doing well and what you could improve. It's about that mentoring relationship that leaders have with others. And none of this would be much fun if we didn't also bring emotion into it. The research is very clear that encourage the heart is just as important to the leader's success as the other four practices. And it's two things. It's about how we recognize the contributions of individuals who are doing excellent work. How do we catch people doing things right? And give them encouragement in a way that feels great to them. And then second, how do we create a true spirit of community within the workplace so that when we walk into the office or to the plant, we all feel like, hey, I belong here. This is something we've created together, is this spirit of community. And what we found is that by practicing these 5 practices more deliberately, leaders have greater effect on the people around them. And it leads to greater job satisfaction, productivity, lower turnover, and more satisfaction on the part of the leader and others. This stuff works, in other words. And not only is it all learnable, this is not rocket science. This is all things that we can teach and learn. In fact, we know that you already know a lot of this, and we take that from the beginning of the workshop, as everyone in here is a seasoned professional person and knows what works and what doesn't. But we can take it farther, because not only is this learnable, it's measurable. We have actually developed an assessment, a 360-degree assessment called the Leadership Practices Inventory, which allows us to measure the frequency with which you engage in these 30 behaviors, 6 for each of the 5 practices, through the viewpoint of others. So a 360 means that you're asking people around you to give you feedback on how frequently they see you engaged in specific behaviors, and that is compared to how you see yourself, because the contrast between how others see you and how you see yourself yields insight and also helps point out where your opportunities are. So there are 30 behavior-based statements on the LPI. You answer those for yourself, your own self-assessment based on a 10-point rating scale from almost never to almost always. And then you ask other people to give you that assessment as well. The assessment also includes an opportunity for your observers to provide narrative comments, text-based comments that sort of round out the picture of how they see you behaving. Now, what can you get from engaging in the Leadership Practices Inventory? Well, our research is very strong, showing a correlation between LPI scores on the left-hand axis here and the engagement scores that people report working with that leader. So in other words, the more frequently people see you engaged in the 30 behaviors of leadership, the more engaged people are likely to be, and that's also a measure of productivity, involvement, etc. So there's a very clear reason for us engaging in the LPI. So what kind of questions does the LPI ask? What are some specific behaviors? Well, you're asking people, how frequently do you see me setting a personal example of what I expect of others? Or how often do people experience me as describing a compelling image of what our future could be like? These are leadership behaviors tied to the 5 practices. Or for challenge the process, how often do people see you experimenting and taking risks, even when there's a chance of things not working out? Or how often do people experience you treating others with dignity and respect, which is a behavior from enable others to act? It's all about relationship. We can't ask people to do tough things if they don't trust us, and people trust us because we show them dignity and respect. But how do people experience you in that way? That's part of the insight that comes from the LPI. Or finally, how frequently do people experience you giving members of the team lots of appreciation and support? This is from Encourage the Heart. How frequently do people find you out walking about the office or the plant, just checking in with people and praising people for their great work? Of course, giving them tough love when they need it, but mostly helping people succeed by pointing out their great works and making it a cause for celebration. Why should it not be that, right? So when you're in the class, you will get your leadership practices inventory report. And this is a page from the report that shows the 5 practices down the left-hand side. And then the scores coming back from yourself, the average then of all your observers who are indicated to the right, because you have the opportunity to put people into different categories: manager, direct report, colleague, or other. And the numeric scores are used to help point out where there's a high degree of consistency between your self score and the score of others, as in this example on Inspire, a shared vision, or where there's more of a gap, as in Model the Way, where the average score is much lower than the self score. So points out what's up with that. What are people seeing or not that can help you set a developmental path for yourself? That's the point. So to participate in the leadership practices inventory, this will begin a month or so before your program, where you will receive an email from our survey administrator. The survey will come from notifications@lpionline.com. That's the website. This is an entirely online process. And the subject line will be LPI Online. Assignments created, which will invite you into a unique LPI page for yourself, where you will be able to do a couple of things. First, you will be presented with the 30 behaviors of leadership, 6 for each of the 5 practices, as I mentioned, and you will be asked to rate yourself on how frequently do you think you engage in these behaviors. And in most circumstances with most people. So just however you see yourself. Next, you will be asked to enter the names and email addresses of between 10 and 15 observers, who will then be asked to give their assessment on those very same items. How frequently do they see you doing these things? And when you're thinking about your observers, you want to pick people that you interact with a lot, people that you're around a lot for the most part, and people whose viewpoint matters. So this will include your current or perhaps your former manager. If you've changed jobs in the last 5 months, you can have as many people in any of these categories as you'd like. Your direct reports, people you supervise, maybe there's 4 or 6 or 8 people, invite them all, why not? Get their point of view, feedback is good. Co-workers would be people that are your peers in the organization, that where there's no reporting relationship, they're just people you interact with. And then there's a category of others, which you can use any way you'd like. We often have people suggest people invite their customers into that, into the survey there, or it could be members of your community outside of work who you're interested how they see you behaving in a leadership way. So it could be people from your community of faith or a nonprofit that you're part of. It's all fair game. You can have up to 99 observers on the LPI. We would suggest 10 to 15 is a good number. That's a good number. Not everyone will participate. We usually get about 80%. So you want to pick a few more people, be generous with yourself. Remembering that all the input that people give you on the LPI is confidential. People are not identified by name, with the possible exception of being your manager. If you only have one person in the M category, well, clearly you'll know who that is, though you could have more. If you're in a matrixed organization, for instance, you might want to have more than that. All right, so that's how the LPI works. Now, the workshop itself, when we come to see you or when you're in class with us, it's intense. We use all the time we're given. We believe that there's a tremendous value of workplace education, and we have fine-tuned our methods to make it as interactive and interesting and valuable as possible. Lots of discussion with partners, trios at your table, the whole group, some individual reflection. There's lots of opportunity to interact with people. And we do have a couple of pieces of pre-work as well that will be sent to you a few weeks before the workshop so that you're able to prepare for that. And one will be to call back on a time in your life when you really felt yourself to be leading something in a great way, your personal best, because the stories that you bring to the workshop form the basis of our cooperative learning model that we use. We'll also ask you to think about a current challenge of leadership you're facing as a way of, throughout the workshop, applying what we're learning and discussing to a very real and valuable situation in your own life to make this a practical experience for you. And yes, we will do our best to make it fun. We're pretty good at that, actually. We love learning. We love working with people. And everything that we're doing as a leader, certainly everything we do in this workshop, is based on one very audacious assumption, and that is that you make a difference. The question, you do make a difference. The question is, what differences do you want to make going forward? Because your opportunity to lead gets reborn every morning. What do you want to make a difference at? That's the spirit we bring to this workshop, and that we hope you will as well. We really look forward to working with you. So we'll take a few questions now if anybody has anything.
This is Jennifer. I have a quick question about who we send out the surveys to.
Sure thing, Jennifer.
So I didn't see on there where we would send it to people that we do a lot of work for. I saw peers and people that work for me, but right. I didn't see. Can we send it to all the people that we do a lot of work for? That they're hired.
Yes, and that would be the other category.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That makes sense, Jennifer? Yeah.
Perfect.
I think it's really valuable to get feedback on how people perceive your behavior as a leader outside the organization as well. And that's where the other category is very useful. So just think, my suggestion is that you think through who would be good to get feedback from, and write down their names. All you need is first name, last name, and email address to enter them into the system, but to have that list ready before you even go on the system. So you've really thought through, well, okay, who amongst my peers here would be good to get input from, and who outside the organization as well. That'll not only make it a more valuable exercise, but also makes the online part of it quicker if you have that ready. So, anyone else?
Yeah, this is Heidi Oriole. I have a related question. What sort of message is sent to people? I mean, should we prep them that this is going to be coming? Or is it,
oh, great question.
Yeah. And that it's directly for us in the upfront email that they receive?
Right. The question is, should you let people know that you're asking them to participate in this survey? And the question is absolutely yes, or the answer is. The survey, I mean, when you put the people in the system, it sends emails to everybody, but people might not recognize that email address. They may not pay attention to it the first time. We do send reminders, but it's better if you alert people to this. So when you make your list of people you want to include, send an email to them all or drop by and just say, hey, I'm taking this class and I'm doing this assessment. And when you see it come through, I'd really appreciate it if you participated. And we give people a few weeks to complete the assessment process. It takes maybe 20 minutes to do. It's not particularly difficult. And the system automatically sends reminders to people every week, but only to those who have not completed it. So you don't have to worry about people being harassed once they've completed it. And you might go around and ask people after 2 weeks or so after the assessment begins, if they've had a chance to do it, because feedback is really valuable, and almost everyone in our workshops is very pleased with the experience of going through the LPI. Very valuable stuff.
When does that start?
I believe we're launching the LPI early next week, so it'll happen soon. Monday.
Our results in advance of the workshop, is that so? Okay.
No, you will get your report during the workshop. We find that works best. So you'll receive your report late morning on the first day of a 2-day workshop, after we've set the stage for the research behind the Leadership Challenge, what we mean by the 5 practices and the 30 behaviors, and after you've told your personal best stories. That is the prime moment to get the feedback. And then throughout the rest of the workshop, we systematically dig into the research and the feedback that you've gotten from people, and help you make sense of it, discuss it with a partner if you'd like to, that kind of thing, so that you really put it to work for yourself. And we do that in the most respectful way possible. We don't, we invite people to share their feedback, but it's certainly not required. This is data that's just for you, and it's designed to help you develop yourself. It's a forward-looking exercise of thinking about, well, this is how people see me as a leader now. What can I add to that? What could I do a little bit differently? And because we understand how education works, is it's a long-term endeavor of incrementally improving what we do. It's like learning a language. You don't get it overnight, but over time we get fluent.
So I'm hearing there's no recovery time for us to see our results before the workshop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's true. But we don't just we're very skillful about how we present the assessments to people. And of course, we're always curious, what are people saying about me? And maybe, I know for me, I can make up the worst or anticipate the worst, but it's usually not like that. Most of the time, people have some very complimentary things to say, as well as probably some suggestions that would be quite useful to us. All in the spirit of how can we be better. Okay. Any other questions come up?
Yep, I think we're good here, Dan.
Good, Rich. Well, I really appreciate having the opportunity to talk with you all. This in this disembodied format. Webinars are kind of odd, but we want to give you good information coming into this workshop so that you can make the most of it. The Leadership Challenge workshop has been presented to literally millions of people. I get to work with a couple thousand people every year. And what I've found is that it's very well received, because first of all, it's all evidence-based. We're not presenting you with theory. We're presenting you with evidence. And we're doing that in a way that's built on sound adult learning principles and a lot of respect for the learning process. Also with the understanding that everybody in the room already leads. You're not here to learn anything new, exactly. Rather to deepen your knowledge and find better and more effective ways to apply it for the betterment of your organization and for the people around you. And that's what that's the spirit which we bring to the workshop. It's a cooperative adventure, and we really look forward to working with you. It'll be fun.